Australia. The name Australia comes from the Latin word australis, meaning southern. And because it lies entirely within the southern hemisphere, Australia is often referred to as down under. Australia is the only country that is also a continent. In area, it ranks as the sixth largest country and the smallest continent. Australia is a dry, thinly populated land. That means there's not many people. Only a few coastal areas receive enough rainfall to support a large population. Most of Australia's people live in the southern eastern coastal region, which includes the country's two largest cities, Sydney and Melbourne. Australia's vast interior is mostly desert or dry grassland and has few settlements. The country as a whole has an average of only 6 persons per square mile. Australia is famous for its vast open spaces, bright sunshine, enormous numbers of sheep and cattle, and unusual wildlife. Kangaroos, koalas, platypus, and wombats are only a few of the many exotic animals that live there. Along the northeastern coast of the continent lies the Great Barrier Reef, the largest group of coral reefs in the world. This unique area supports an unmatched variety and quality of coral polyps. The first Australians, a dark-skinned people known today as Aborigines, have lived in Australia for at least 40,000 years before the first white settlers arrived. Since then, the number of whites has steadily increased, and the number of Aborigines has declined. Today, the vast majority of Australians are white. Australia is one of the world's developed countries with bustling cities, modern factories, and highly productive farms and mines. Its economy is increasingly diversified, with a healthy service industry and a gradual shift of the value of exports. Let's skip a little bit. Great Britain, let's start again here. Great Britain settled Australia as a prison colony in the late 1700s, and most Australian people are of British ancestry. These immigrants brought many British customs with them. For example, tea is Australia's favorite hot drink, and people drive on the left side of the road in Australia, as they do in Britain. In addition, English, with many British terms, is the official language. Nevertheless, just as people of Australia have given the language a distinctive slant with their own terms and pronunciation, so have they developed a way of life all their own. Let's have a look at the flag. The official name is the Commonwealth of Australia. Let's have a look up here. Let's start here. The Commonwealth of Australia is a federation of 6 states: New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania, Victoria, and Western Australia. Each state has its own government. Australia's constitution gives certain powers to the federal government and leaves all others to the states. Let's skip that. The capital. The capital is Canberra. You need to find that on the map and put it on your map. The environment is quite dry looking. Wildlife. We have koalas, kangaroos, parrots, crocs. At one time, all the world's continents were part of one huge landmass. The region that is now Australia became separated from this landmass about 200 million years ago. And as a result, the animal life of Australia developed differently from the other continents. For example, marsupials, animals with pouches, are Australia's most unusual and famous creatures. Unique animal life. Most mammals give birth to relatively well-developed offspring, but Australia's marsupials give birth to tiny, poorly developed offspring. The marsupial newborn undergoes most of its development while attached to one of the mother's nipples in a pouch called the marsupium. Kangaroos, koalas, wallabies, and wombats are marsupials. Australia has about 150 species of marsupials, all of which have pouches. The platypus and the echinda, found only in Australia, are the only mammals in the world that hatch their young from eggs. Platypuses live in long burrows that they dig in the banks of streams. Except for females with their young, each platypus lives in its own burrow. Platypus can walk on land as well as swim, and they use their bills to scoop their food from the bottom of streams. Australia also has about 700 species of native birds. They include the world's only black swans, about 60 kinds of cockatoos, parakeets, and other parrots. The emu, a large flightless bird, has long legs for running and stands 5.5 feet tall. That's taller than me. The kookaburra, one of Australia's best-known birds, nests in tree holes and has a call that sounds like a loud laugh. The Aborigines. Aborigines are Australians whose ancestors were the first people to live in Australia. The name comes from the Latin phrase aborigine, meaning from the beginning. Most scientists believe that the ancestors of today's Aborigines arrived in Australia at least 40,000 years ago from Southeast Asia. By the time Europeans arrived in 1788, 500 tribes of Aborigines had developed, each with its own language.